So the mail issue in Canada is rearing up again. The last government put a plan in place to remove home delivery. That's the mail in your box thing that's standard in the industrial world, right? They wanted to move to a system of community mailboxes like you'd see in a rural subdevelopment. So that the mail person would come and just drop it off in the box, and then people would come from around and pick it up and then disperse. The There was a lot of backlash to this. The truth is that it was mostly just resistance to change. Um, but if you look at the plan carefully, it didn't. It wasn't very smart. Okay, they claimed that they needed to change the system because there was cost overruns and etc. Like they couldn't. There's a crown corporation in Canada called Canada Post, which means it's a government run. Um, it's not technically a monopoly, but it operates more or less as one. Um, I mean, it depends, right? On home delivery, it's a monopoly, which is like, why do you competing? It would be pretty stupid to have a market for mail delivery, right? The kind of thing that um, there's no benefit to that other than gouging consumers, right? Um, so I mean, Canada Post it, but I mean, commercial delivery. There's a market for that. So we have FedEx and stuff like that, right? Um, but Canada Post it. So well, I mean, it's I actually, you know what? I don't know if it's true. Did did you guys privatize your mail service? And I say this like I'm talking to Americans because it's the internet. I've been on the internet a long time, and I've been talking to Americans on the internet a long time. Whenever I'm on the internet, it's always I'm talking to Americans. I don't know. It's just well, I mean, I guess there's 30 million Canadians and 500 million Americans, so you know. I think 500 is a bit of an exaggeration. I don't know the population of the United States. I never have. I always get it screwed up. Um, I know I've been way off at times. Like I've never. It's well, I don't really have an intuitive way to grasp it, right? I don't live in your country, um, but that's a number I often I usually overestimate it. I usually think that there's far more than there are. But yeah, so Canada Post, the idea is to drop it off so that and what they claimed was that they would save money this way. But if you look at this, like they're not gonna. The cost of transferring the system is going to far outstrip costs that they're going to gain for like decades, right? It's going to take forever to make up the costs to switch over. Because when you think about it, what's the difference? Either the mail person can park at the corner and, you know, spend a few minutes walking around the block, or the mail person can stop once and then drop it off there and then drive to the like it does not at all strike me as a cost saving mechanism. This is the problem with the Conservative Party and the Conservative Party's fiscal conservatism. They do this over and over again. They bring in these systems that are designed to reduce costs, or so they claim, and then it ends up costing, 10 times as much. Sometimes, it's obviously it's malicious, right? So when they brought in a market for energy, that was, and then they told us it was going to reduce energy costs. I mean, a lot of people fell for that. But I mean, it was obvious that wasn't going to happen, right? Because markets don't reduce costs. Generally, markets increase costs. Um, and sure enough, we've had the price of electricity it's growing out of control. And there's still people that want to blame it on these green procurement programs when I mean that wouldn't have been an issue in the first place had the government before that not privatized the system, right? Um, and that happens over and over again with the conservatives. They, like I say, they tell you they're doing things to save money when everybody, including them, know that it's going to cost more money, and they're really working for the business interests that are going to make a profit off of it, right? This may be a little. I mean, I don't. They weren't in power long enough, I guess, to watch the situation unfold, right? Maybe had it unfolded, we would have started to see, interest come in and start scooping things up. But I think that this is actually just an example of bad management. It was just mismanaged, right? But so I mean, that was kind of my pushback on it. But you also had, like I said, there's just a resistance to change. You had, older people that don't want to walk down, in the winter to get their mail, break their hip kind of thing, which is if you're an old person, that's a valid concern, right? Um, and you had union pushback saying that they were going to, it was going to reduce, the amount of hours that people had. Um, I'd really push back against that though too, right? Because this is not meaningful work. This is somebody that walks around from door to door and dropping off letters. Like, this is the kind of thing that we should have robots doing. That person is not using their faculties to their maximum ability. That person is a slave to the division of labor. That job should be abolished. Nobody should have to walk from door to door and drop off mail. It's a horrible way to live. Horrible existence. And like I say, it's really sad that people aren't able to see that for what it is, right? People are so lost they can't see themselves in the mirror, right? So now the union is pushing back, and we're gonna. This was something that we saw develop near the end of the last government's mandate. Um, the new government was a little bit ambiguous about what they wanted. I didn't really consider this a serious election issue. You know, um, I thought that what they were bringing in was stupid, but I mean, I'm really not in favor of maintaining mail delivery at all. I'm not concerned about the mail and whether it exists or not. I get two kinds of mail. I get stuff from the government and flyers. Almost everything I get from the government could be digitized, and I don't care at all about the flyers. It would be great if they stopped delivering flyers. The mail system absolutely needs to adjust to the digital world. What these people do is an anachronism. Okay? My criticism of the previous government on the mail issue was that they weren't going far enough and they were botching the implementation. I don't even need to look at the accounting to know ahead of time that building community mailboxes is actually what's going to increase costs. So I'm not going to get upset if this shuts down. Rather, I'd request that they hurry up in digitizing. Lots of people don't recycle. It creates huge amounts of waste for no good reason. People look at the flyers, they throw it in the garbage. In fact, I would support bylaws that outlaw flyering. Like I say, my experience with the mail is that I deal with governments and flyers. I would rather the flyers did not exist at all. And then, I could put a sign up that doesn't solve anything. In fact, I'd rather take it because at least I know I'm recycling it. The guy next door might not recycle it. Might just throw it in the garbage. At least if you give it to me, I'm putting it in the recycle bin, right? Give me all your stupid flyers. I'll put them all in the recycle bin. But that, I mean, like, the solution to flyering is just to stop doing it. And if you need a law, I mean, people should have enough, decency and sense to realize that this is not a good thing to do, right? Again, it's very sad that we might have to pass a law that outlaws it, and that people just don't stop doing it. But if people are going to do it, they should be doing it, independent of the postal system. Hire a teenager to do it. That's the way you poster. Think about it. These people are adults. They're being paid, union wages to drop off pizza flyers. What absurdity. Nobody wants them. If I want a pizza, I don't go and look at the flyers. You know what I do if I want a pizza? I go on the internet and I look to see what the closest pizza places are. In fact, I may even order it on the internet. A flyer? It's 2016. You want me to read a pizza flyer? What century are you in? The other thing I deal with is government, and like I said, the government could digitize. It would probably be a lot better if government would digitize, right? I mean, they send me all kinds of stuff in the mail that probably shouldn't be. I mean, if it was intercepted, I'd be losing um, sensitivity, right? And I mean, people drop it in my mailbox, right? Anybody can go in your mailbox. It would be an increase in security to digitize it, and you'd save so much paper. You'd save so much on bureaucracy, so much on administrative costs. And you'd free up all of these people, from the monotony of office work. Those are jobs that no human should have to do. We have the technology, let's use it. You know? Let's not look backwards, let's move forwards quickly. Discard the past, fuck the past, right? There is, of course, another use for the mail. I don't really use it at all. I mean, I've had the odd thing mailed to me, right? If I get some new headphone cables, that will get mailed to me. And I don't. I don't mind seeing that privatized. That's well, it's private business. That's if we're going to have private, if we're going to live in a system of market exchange, then that's the kind of thing that should be done freely, right? I don't have an issue with that. So I mean, I don't have any attachment to this. In fact, I'd like to see it gone. And all of the arguments that you hear from the so-called left are really disappointing. Okay? A real leftist should look at the situation and say that we have the opportunity to use technology to emancipate people from monotonous labor. There's no reason to uphold the status quo. There's no reason to fight for people's jobs. You've lost the plot. The left doesn't fight for higher wages in a union-organized workplace. It argues for the collapse of the division of labor, for freedom, for the abolishment of monotonous labor. That's communism. Don't miss the point, guys. When this election cycle started, a lot of people were talking about how Trump was a clown. But he could maybe break open the two-party system. Then you had the Bernie or bust types that argued that a Trump presidency may be preferable because it'll create a bigger backlash. And a part of me agrees, but then what? Another Democrat? No doubt to the right of the last one. How do we break this cycle? The way the election has unfolded suggests that this may be the last election with a serious Republican candidate. Clinton is poaching the brains out of the Republicans. All that's left is cock money, and it will be gone in 8 years due to natural causes. What happens when they die? It's going to happen pretty soon. The next election could feature the Democrats as the Conservative Party on the right, and a Sanders-inspired Liberal Party challenger. Greens? Somebody else? I don't know. I think the tactic ought to be to worry less about who is the lesser of two evils. They're both spawns of Satan. And focus more on taking the opportunity to help destroy the Republican Party. If the Democrats can pull off a full sweep in addition to their poaching of the intelligentsia, the Republican Party will be left without any hope of a future, and the left can transcend the fear-mongering. It's going to require a bit of a social movement. The seeds of this exist. You don't have to support Clinton to attack Trump. I've been over this a few times here. I'm just, this is up on my Facebook page as well. This is kind of my current position on the American election. The greater goal here, the plot line needs to be that the Republicans are weak and should go for the kill kind of thing. This is an opportunity that might never come back. Let's take advantage of it. Let's reduce them to a minor party. I think that can be done, and that it's a good thing if it is done, because then, once that is done, we can have, a real left come out of the mess. If you can imagine, a situation where the Democrats have such a big majority in the Senate, maybe not in the Congress, just because, there's only so many seats up for grabs, right? But in the Senate, certainly, where they have enough of a majority that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party has more influence than the Republican Party. A situation where the progressive wing of the Democrats can halt legislation in such a way that forces Clinton to rely on Republican support. This starts to blur the lines in the parties, creating a fracture point on the left. I mean, if the left wants to have any serious influence, it's going to have to break the Democrats apart, right? You can try to do it from the outside, you can try to do it from the inside. I generally broadly agree that trying to work inside of a party like the Democrats is almost impossible. But we're being gifted a situation where the leadership of the Democratic Party is moving away from its base. What was the line of Reagan? I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. Well, it seems like the Democratic Party is going back to Reagan. And it's going to leave a lot of people behind, right? The idea here is not to change the Democratic Party. It's to break it apart. But the biggest reason that can't happen is because of the existence of this Republican Party, right? The amount of power that it can control while it exists, the amount of fear that it generates on would-be third-party voters. Like I said, they're weak. If you let them survive, they will come back. This is an opportunity to kill them. I think that we should show no mercy, and we should focus on that as a bigger goal right now. Trump is terrible, Clinton is terrible. It doesn't really matter who wins. But the ability to wipe out the Republicans, that's historic. That's worth making a temporary alliance for. But let's be explicit. Let's realize that that is actually what's in front of us. Now let's actually do it. So it's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was up around 3:30 and I didn't know if I was awake or not. We had some rainstorms come in. There was the tornado the other day, and it's been kind of raining every night ever since. And the rain doesn't always knock me out, but if I'm awake a little early, or like if I wake up in the morning and it rains in the afternoon, I'm gonna pass out always, right? Or if I'm awake at night and it rains in the morning, I'll pass out. Like it's if I wake up and it's raining, but it's if a certain amount of time. I think it's the humidity, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's more than that. It might even be like the release of the humidity. I don't know. Like if it's hot and humid and dry, then I don't get sleepy. But it's like the from hot to cold release. It might be that. Either way, the last couple of days have been a lot of sleep. Like I was only awake about 7 hours yesterday, overall, right? So, well, no, would have been what? Yeah, more like 9 hours. Still, it's a very short day, right? I didn't get anything done. It was just, I woke up, messed around a little bit, got something to eat, and fell asleep. I didn't even finish doing my dishes. I just finished doing my dishes now. So, I haven't been doing anything the last couple of hours either, and I'm not going to be doing anything for the next couple of hours because I got to go to my pills. I guess they're open around 8 or 9. I'd be okay for until tomorrow morning. But I got I got the really nasty hair out of my neck, the one that I was really self-conscious about. So and it was like I said, it was like that. I may get a face shot. Well, I might even get one today. In the next couple of days, anyways. And you'll see that there's a bit of a mark. But I mean, at the very least, the marks don't bother me as much as the. Like I said, looking at it, it looked like there was like a hair worm in my neck, or like somebody had like tattooed a mark on my Adam's apple, or some other like it's a really it's something that I'm particularly self-conscious about. So that's dealt with. So I may even get to see them a couple of shows at the beginning of September. We'll see what the weather's like, and we'll see how I'm feeling. Have I got enough work? I haven't got much done in August. Let's be honest. August has not been a productive month. I mean, it hasn't been bad, but I mean, it's been like a lot of it's out of my control. The power goes out. It's going back and forth with the doctors, flipping it over this and that. I mean, it's been a bit of a challenging month. I'm gonna get it behind me. I'm gonna have to do end of the month stuff, but I'm gonna let's get my pills in the morning. Then let's get some listening done this afternoon. Let's try to stay awake more than 10 hours. The meal yesterday was big. My last egg bit, I finished it this morning. I should be able to do some things before I have to eat again. So I might just go ahead and do it, and we might not be back here until this evening. We'll find out. It's a property in Louisiana. Sorry, is it in Mississippi? The flooding that's going on right now in the Delta. It's one way to do it, huh? Well, you know the floods come every year, right? Why not? And then it kind of makes that seem a little bit more obvious, doesn't it? That's an artist's reconstruction of the Indian city of Cahokia, um, the Native American city of Cahokia. I actually don't know the precise tribal designation off the top of my head. You can look it up, but they may have been Cahokians. You see how they elevate their dwellings? Why would they do that? Maybe it's because they know it floods every year. Hmm? Who's primitive now, huh? Americans living around the Mississippi get up and evacuate every couple of years due to the floodwaters, but they wait until the floods until they do it. The previous inhabitants of the region just got out of the way every year, expecting the worst and no doubt preventing a lot of destruction in the process. That migration is ongoing. People just don't, they just don't think like that. The people that live in that region today live the same basic lifestyle of migration, of constant migration. They're just fool enough to think that this time they won't have to move. How could they be so stupid when you think about it for a second? I know this place has flooded every year for the last 100 years, but maybe it won't flood this year. If they could figure out that you gotta get out of the way of the waters, why can't we figure it out? Maybe we could learn something from them? You know, in the thousands of years that they spent living in the region? I know it's oral histories and everything, but you gotta think they figured a few things out along the way, right? Less false dichotomies and more synthesis, please. You know? Less of this us and them mentality and more of this let's take, you know, let's take what you know and let's take what we know and let's put them together and then we both know more. You know, like fuck the cultural conservatism. Fuck the property rights. Let's grow and change and move into the future together. Let me be a little presumptuous in suggesting that whatever is rebuilt in the region will be flooded again within a few years. You sure it's the best idea? Well, you can build your castle on top of, you know, multiple other castles. They said it was daft to build a castle in the swamp. I built it anyways and it sunk. And they told me it was daft to build it again, and so I built it anyways. And it sunk again. And they built it again and it sunk again, but the fourth try. Guess what? The fourth try will sink again too. It just hasn't happened yet. And the fifth try will sink. The sixth try will sink. It will keep sinking into perpetuity. Because you're building a castle in a swamp. Not the brightest idea. But the mounds. The mounds are a good idea. That's a good idea, guys. Just putting some clothes on and going to the store. Just a reminder that I do still exist. That I do put some clothes on from time to time, but when I get back, I'll take my clothes off, and I don't plan on putting them back on for a few more days. Okay, it's noon and I'm back. I just want to get a little bit more FaceTime in because there's been so little. And while the temperature is going to come down over the next couple of days, it's still, like, I'm still not going to be wearing clothes until I absolutely have to. I may go out a few times in September, so we may see each other a little bit more frequently. Just because I'm going out and doing things, so, but, like, I still don't plan on putting clothes on while I'm here, while I'm in. As you can see, it's super sweaty. It's actually kind of nice because when I keep it nice and warm in here, it's actually cooler when I walk outside, right? So it's actually kind of nice. But nonetheless, there was a lot of walking, had a lot of pop, so, and etc. So I'm super sweaty. It's okay. I'm going to put my groceries away. I didn't get much. I lied to you the other day when I said that it was my last eggs day. It's just due to the strawberry situation because I'm going to need to go get some strawberries in the next couple of days. So I just got some more eggs to tie me over the rest of the month. And then I'll do a big grocery shopping run sometime in the first couple of days of September. That's the plan. Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit of listening in. There's an Ultra Reality update coming up soon. I need to do some budgeting, end of the month stuff. But, yeah, it's going to be nothing too exciting for the next little bit. The listening, I got some listening. This is, it sounds great walking. The bass is not as loud as it could be. That's, like, if somebody wants to put it through, it's flat, right? So if somebody wants to put it through an EQ, they can turn it up a little bit. It's just, the other phones have really, really good response. The low response here is a little bit lacking. It's very minor. I would much rather have a lacking response in the bottom end and a very good high end than have this muddy bass and kind of a passable high end. So I like these phones better than I like the more expensive ones. Again, they're not as good as my fancy ones, but I'm happy with what's coming up. Again, it's also an MP3 player. We'll see how it sounds like through the laptop when we get to the Waves and Flax, it's going to be a few more days anyways. Right now, I really want to get the stuff away. I want to sit down and do some listening and go from there. I forgot my salami. God damn it. I gotta put my uniform back on. I actually really don't have to. I could just go prancing out there. I'm wearing underwear. I have holes in my underwear, but no real. Well, actually, I'm sure there's probably a no shoes, no service. And I don't want to get syphilis anyways. So I guess I'll have to. No, not really. Nobody wants to get syphilis. With those signs, they always say no shoes, no shirt, no service. They never say anything about pants. Does that mean if I walk in with a shirt and no pants, that I can get service? I'm not so much into the pranks myself, but that sounds like fun, doesn't it? I would normally give a fuck about this, but this made me laugh. A Transformers car. It's a Camaro, I guess. That made me chuckle. I got my salami, and I'm on my way home. Okay, let's try this again. Clothes coming off. I'm out for at least, the seamy part of this is gone for a little bit. Actually, I think that yoga is a cult, and it turns people into shallow, mindless idiots. It's all about success and hierarchy. This is not a positive way forward. This is the world that needs to be destroyed. Yoga is the representation of everything that is wrong with society. Okay, the aerobics might be healthy. Fine, drop the bullshit and go to aerobics class. You don't need all of this, all of this pro-capitalist fucking hierarchical trash to do exercise. if you can separate the stretching from the stupid, the stretching from the backward stupidity, then okay. But don't come to me and tell me that you think that yoga is a source of wisdom. I'm gonna laugh at you. Nate's over arguing that um, Trump is catching up. See, it's the curve, right? Because there's a very small period of time where Trump's numbers are increasing. It therefore follows that Trump's numbers will increase at the same rate of change into perpetuity, meaning that in the year 2050, Trump will have 10,000% of the vote. Nate Silver has managed to prove that people that are not born yet will vote for Donald Trump in the future. Excuse my contempt. The polls here that he's using, first of all, okay, forget about his model. He's putting garbage into the system, and so he's gonna get garbage out of it. He's putting the Gravis pool in. Now I know that these people want to argue that you just take every pool you can find and then you let them balance each other out. I think that's ridiculous. All right, you don't. You know that that's a skewed pool, right? He's using online polling, right? So he's taking a bunch of garbage, he's putting it into his model, and he's getting a bunch of garbage out of it, right? A lot of garbage averaged out is not a good result. When you average out a bunch of garbage, the result is just still a bunch of garbage. Whatever model you want to use, I don't really like, or I don't really think that it's. I think it's very perilous to try to build these kinds of predictive modeling around elections because it's not. It's a. It just does not make sense to model elections. I'm sorry. It's just not. Or if you are going to model an election, you've got to model it more like the weather, right? Not like you're doing an experiment in high school physics, right? Uh, but however you're going to do it, you should really ensure that you're only putting good polls in. Now, if you go back and look at my results here, good polls doesn't mean the source. Good polls doesn't mean the outcome. Good polls means the methodology, right? And I've said a few things, right? Like I don't like the source or whatever, but or this is a source that leans on my side of the spectrum, but I don't like their methodology, so we're gonna discard that, right? It's not cherry picking. It's not you know uh, breaking things down ideologically. You're just looking at methodology, and it happens to be at this point that all of the reliable polls using good methodology put Clinton up by a substantial margin. That's what the reliable polls say, without exception. And the second thing is that you just don't model elections using regression analysis and a line of best fit, because elections are not natural phenomena. They're not going to follow a trend line. That's absolutely meaningless. You don't want to smooth things out, because then what you do when you smooth things out like that is you're ignoring, the factors that are driving uh, the the responses. What you want to do is amplify the noise, right? So when you get the signal and it's kind of fluttering like that, and you see a big bump, right? You don't want to just say that's an outlier. You want to look at that and you want to hone in on that, right? And then you want to say, okay, is this measuring something real and can it be reproduced? With elections, averaging things out to the mean like this is not it's not uh, analytically coherent. One should expect that election polling will actually fly around all over the place, right? So you're not going to see a trend line. You're not going to see it's not going to be linear, right? What you're going to see is it's going to float around all over the place like that, right? And it could be like a week before the election, the polls could say one thing, and a week after the election, they could say something else completely, right? We've seen this happen, right? Where a week before the election, a candidate is, one candidate is up, and then on the week of the election there's a dip, and then the week after the election it's back to what it was the week before. An election is a snapshot. It's a moment in time. And while yeah, you can, or you have to understand what the snapshot is based on the past, it's not going to follow some causal linear line. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it may be true that a constant rate of change from now into infinity will give Trump 100% of the vote, 1,000% of the vote. I could say 1,000 years from now, it's ridiculous to apply it as a predictive at all. Okay, even over a few months, it is cherry picking data. Okay, what he's doing is he's taking a really small part of a complex curve, and he's taking essentially the derivative of that curve, and he's using the derivative to project it forwards. When a smart analysis would be okay, it's not going to move based on the instantaneous rate of change, right? But you want to be, you know, it is a regression analysis, but it's a more complicated one. It's not linear, and you want to find a curve of best fit, right? And maybe you could find that. Most cases you couldn't for the same reason that the linear model doesn't work. When you do an experiment in controlled conditions, okay, it's something like one thing that happens, right? And then you can try to try to build relationships between different ideas, right? So you want to use something simple like force equals mass times acceleration, and then you can sort of build that, right? And you can find that correlation, and then you can predict in the future that the more mass and the more acceleration, the higher the force. But during an election cycle, there's not one experiment, right? It's infinitely many experiments happening over and over again. And so maybe it's true that if you were to freeze time and nothing else was going to happen, but that's ridiculous. I'm not saying that what he's predicting is necessarily wrong, right? By some fluke, you might see a linear. But there's no reason to think that his analysis is predictive at all, in any way. He's really just fucking around with numbers, pulling numbers out of his ass, and trying to make them using big words and trying to sound scientific. His argument does not make any sense. It's completely incoherent. You just can't do this. You can't do what he's doing. It's wrong. Okay? That said, I agree that he's right in pointing out that there's a lot of volatility right now. Right? But I'd be more likely to argue that the volatility is careening towards a possible Clinton landslide. One of the reasons being that the whole third party thing, right? Now, I know people will say that, he's taking just as much from Johnson, but I mean, that's maybe nationally, but if you look at the important states, I mean, if Johnson does well in Georgia, it's not gonna help Trump, right? Clinton could win states like Georgia, and North Carolina's maybe got more complex causes, right? Partly demographic, but partly Johnson. And if he ends up running at 8, 9, 10% in these states that were kind of maybe able to swing, and that combined with kind of I mean, even if there is only a small movement, right? A 3-4% movement, that 3-4% movement combined with that 10%, fall, which it see if you do the national polling, right, and you see that okay, it's 10% across the country and it's split evenly from Republican and Democrat. But then when you look at it and you see okay, that means that she's down 10 points in Wisconsin, but winning anyways, or down 10 points in New York, but winning anyways, and it's like the whole 10% voting for Johnson is Democrats in New York, and the whole 10% voting for Johnson in Georgia is Republican, right? See, and this goes back to something else I was saying about uniform swings, right? You can't just take this and apply it the same way to every part of the country. You have to look at, you have to realize that there's going to be a lot of variation there, and you can probably find patterns regionally, right? In solid, from what I've seen, the idea that in solid Republican areas, Johnson's support is more Republican holds up, and in more Democratic areas, Johnson's support is more Democratic leaning, also holds up. Okay, but I mean she's winning by much larger margins in New York than he is in even Texas, right? She's going to win New York by 25 points, so she can afford to lose 10%. Even in Texas, I mean, if he wins by 15%, or if he would have been up by 15% otherwise, but with the Johnson factor in now it's 7, 8. I mean that's Texas, right? In Georgia, if Trump would be winning by 5 points in Georgia otherwise, but because of Johnson, he's losing, right? I mean, you've got that. You've got the whole conservative elites moving over, which might not have a big effect unless it starts trickling down, right? I don't think there's many Republicans that are going to listen to Meg Whitman, but there may be a lot that are going to listen to their pastors. And if the machinery starts trickling that down, you could start seeing, the big. It could happen overnight, right? And this is what I'm suggesting is that you're not going to see that, right? If the landslide does happen, it'll be like you'll just wake up one day and the polls will be completely different. Okay, it's not you're not going to see a constant rate of change. You're not going to see something that you can model that way. It's not going to be incremental. It's going to be an instantaneous break, or at least happen over a couple of days. And again, it would behoove you to go back and look at previous data to see that in fact these dramatic switches do happen. and not infrequently. So yeah, lots of volatility. To suggest the volatility makes the linear model more likely, I don't know. But as to the point, is it too early to run out of the clock? Broadly, yes. Okay. But on the emails specifically, which is what the article that he's referencing is talking about, I actually think the article is right that it is better that she shuts up about that specific topic. Okay. What I'm going after so far on here is the idea that you can use correlative predictive modeling like this. Okay. That you can just do a regression analysis, find your line of best fit and suggest that the future is predicted by the trends of the past like that. That's just not how elections operate. And I'm kind of picking on him right now. I was picking on lots of people in Canada a few months ago. I'll pick on lots of people in the future about this. I really think that this kind of approach needs to be thrown into the dustbin. It may work out from time to time by chance, by luck, but that doesn't mean it's right. My argument is that you can't predict it, right? And so I'm not going to tell you that there will be a landslide, because then I would be contradicting myself. What I'm saying is that you need to look more at what political scientists are saying about what the fundamentals on the ground are, rather than what statisticians um, are presenting using their supposed scientific methods. And this is not anti-intellectual either. Anybody who is informed on the topic would tell you that Silver is trying to put one over on you here. Well, it's 10 o'clock at night, and while I have napped a little, I have avoided falling asleep. I'm not very productive. Again. I watched, I think, 3 vlogs, though. So, yeah. Okay. I am to blame tonight on the vlog. I could have gotten something a little bit more done today. But then again, I did nap a little bit. I got about 2 or 3 hours worth of sleep. But I avoided the pass out so far. I'm going to finish eating. I had a smoothie a little earlier. I'm now going to have my eggs. And I think when the heat comes down a little bit in here, it will be good for me. Does that mean I'm getting tired of the heat? It might. I might I might be getting enough of it, kind of thing. And it might come down a little bit tomorrow. We'll see.